What would you do if someone tried to fine you for using your own property? What if your neighbors called the cops? Not because you broke the law, but because you broke their illusion of control. Can a single line in a legal document really destroy an entire HOA's power? And what happens when the quiet guy with a jet ski decides he's done playing nice? I never thought enjoying a quiet ride on my jet ski, on my own private lake, would end with police lights flashing across the water. But that's exactly what happened last Saturday. There I was, living out the weekend dream, sun, speed, serenity, when the HOA president, Janice with a J, decided I was public enemy number one. She didn't wave. She didn't knock. She just called the cops. Now, if you're already wondering, wait, how can you get in trouble for jet skiing your own lake? You're not alone. I asked the same thing. So did the officer, actually. But what Janice didn't know was that a single sentence, buried in my property, deed had the power to shut down her HOA reign of terror in one breath. And trust me, I used it. This isn't just a story about jet skis and Karen-style overreach. It's about standing up to the people who think power equals control. And it all started with a splashed swimsuit and a very bad phone call. I never thought enjoying a quiet ride on my jet ski, on my own private lake, would end with police lights flashing across the water. But that's exactly what happened last Saturday. There I was, living out the weekend dream, sun, speed, serenity, when the HOA president, Janice with a J, decided I was public enemy number one. She didn't wave. She didn't knock. She just called the cops. Now, if you're already wondering, wait, how can you get in trouble for jet skiing your own lake? You're not alone. I asked the same thing. So did the officer, actually. But what Janice didn't know was that a single sentence, buried in my property, deed had the power to shut down her HOA reign of terror in one breath. And trust me, I used it. This isn't just a story about jet skis and Karen-style overreach. It's about standing up to the people who think power equals control. And it all started with a splashed swimsuit and a very bad phone call. Let me set the stage. I moved into this quiet lakeside community about 18 months ago. Beautiful homes, tree-lined streets, and a 9-acre lake, all part of the development. My lot, the largest one, tucked at the far end of the lake. Peaceful. Private. Or so I thought. The lake was a huge part of why I bought this place. I even asked my agent point blank if I could use motorized watercraft. The answer was yes, your deed includes private lake rights. I was sold. Now enter Janice, president of the HOA, wielder of passive aggression like it's a weaponized yoga mat. She introduced herself at the community BBQ and immediately commented that my lawn had a wild vibe. It was grass, green, mowed, normal. The first month, she sent me a note kindly reminding me to use beige-colored curtains facing the street. Second month, a warning about the unauthorized fire pit. It was a grill from Home Depot on my patio. Still, I kept to myself. Until one sunny Saturday, I finally launched my brand new jet ski. It was glorious. 10 minutes in, I saw Janice standing at her balcony, phone in hand, mouth tight. 15 minutes later, a sheriff's deputy pulled into my driveway. He said they got a call about a disturbance on the lake. Disturbance. Right. I explained everything. Showed my ID, even pointed at my deed framed in my office. The deputy half smiled and said, "Well, looks like you're good, but maybe keep it quiet to avoid drama." I agreed, but that was just the beginning. The next week, I got a letter from the HOA. A formal notice of violation. Unauthorized use of motorized vehicles on community lake. A $150 fine. I sent a copy of my deed with a friendly note saying to check paragraph 3. Line 6, you'll see. I have exclusive riparian access rights. Cheers. 2 days later, another fine. $250. Same violation. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about control. Janice had signs posted around the lake. No jet skis. HOA policy. HOA board members began inspecting my shoreline, cameras and clipboards. One morning, I found zip ties on my dock cleats with a note saying pending legal action. Oh yes, the HOA was zip tying my property now. Trespassing, technically. But hey, why not break laws to enforce fake ones? I tried diplomacy. I spoke at the next board meeting, calmly explaining the deed's language. Janice rolled her eyes. Another board member asked if I could just kayak instead, to keep the peace. But peace was never the point. They started mailing threats of liens. Neighbors stopped waving. One guy even yelled, "Enjoy it while it lasts, Lake Boy," as he drove by. The final straw? I got a certified letter threatening legal action. They claimed I was creating an unsafe environment and damaging communal property. Funny, since I owned that portion of the lake, I realized something. They weren't going to stop until I either sold the house, gave in, or fought back. So I started reading. Not blogs, not Facebook lawyer posts, Actual property law. And there, buried in a dusty county records book, was a sentence so ironclad it might as well have been engraved in granite. I smiled. They wanted a fight? Fine. Time to bring the whole HOA fantasy world crashing down. Step 1. Paper. I gathered every deed and plat map I could find. Turns out, my property wasn't just adjacent to the lake. It included a carved-out portion of the lake bed, legally described, surveyed, owned. Even better, paragraph 3. Line 6 stated that the property owner reserves full recreational rights to watercraft access, inclusive of motorized use, for Lake Parcel B. Boom. Step 2. The law. I retained a real estate attorney. She was brilliant. Laughed when she read the HOA's letters. This isn't even enforceable. They're bluffing. So we drafted a cease and desist. Not just denying the HOA's authority, but warning them that any further trespassing or fines would trigger legal action for harassment and property interference. Step 3. Make it public. I made 30 copies of my deed, and at the next HOA meeting, I passed them out. Since everyone seems so concerned with my lake access, I thought you'd like to see the legal reason. Janice's fines are worth less than wet tissue paper. Then I played the ace. My lawyer filed a formal complaint with the county, accusing the HOA of harassment and misuse of their authority. And since their charter didn't actually include enforcement over the lake, the county opened an inquiry. Suddenly the signs disappeared. The zip ties stopped. Neighbors started waving again. Even Janice got quieter, almost. A month later, I got an invitation to a special HOA meeting. Translation: damage control. Janice stood up, stiff posture, lips pursed like she'd eaten a lemon. She announced they've decided to revise the HOA policy regarding lake usage. Too late. I stood up, calm as the lake before dawn. I appreciate the clarification, but you don't have jurisdiction over my property. You never did. And if I receive one more fine, you'll be dealing with my attorney, not me. Silence. Then a few claps. From neighbors. Turns out I wasn't the only one Janice had hassled. I just happened to be the first one who fought back. Later that week, Janice resigned for health reasons. Her vice president took over and quietly told me he'd been waiting for someone to stand up to her. My favorite moment? Seeing that giant no jet skis sign pulled out of the ground like a dead weed. Guess who rode past the empty post the next morning at full throttle? Me, wearing sunglasses, sipping coffee, waving at the people who used to glare. Looking back, this wasn't really about a jet ski. It was about how some people wrap themselves in rules to control others, and how easily that crumbles when someone stands up and says, "Actually, no." All it took was a single sentence, buried in the paperwork no one else bothered to read. Here's the thing. Entitlement hates information. Bullies crumble when you read the fine print. And sometimes poetic justice sounds like an engine revving across still water. So what would you have done? Have you ever had to deal with an overreaching HOA? Or a neighborhood tyrant? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And hey, if you made it this far, comment "justice served" so Janice knows she didn't win. Because in the end, it's not just about peace and quiet. It's about knowing when to make waves. Subscribe for more stories where justice gets loud.